So without further ado, the MaxElite electrometer is really where precision meets performance. We're extremely proud of this interface. It's very easy to use and intuitive. We designed it so that it matches your workflow as best as possible in order to make use of the electrometer very, very convenient, very simple to learn. Has a very large touchscreen. It's the largest one on the market. So that you have a large display, but you also have the ability to manipulate it as you'd like to have it set up. There's a bit of a flexible setup well, not a bit, flexible setup configuration, both in the physical setup of the device. The handle that you can see on the screen here can be adjusted to multiple different angles in order to adjust the angle of the screen. If you're seated and it's on a higher table and you need it to be more vertical, then you can set it up nearly vertical. If you're standing above it and looking down, it can be horizontal on the desk or somewhere in between, whatever is convenient to you. The other half of that flexibility, though, is that with this electrometer, we've also implemented a remote operation option for the higher end, the 2 and the 4 channel versions of the MaxElite, so that you can operate it directly from your laptop or from your computer if that's more convenient for you. We've also implemented a fast warm-up, just like with our SuperMax. It's a 1-minute warm-up time. We've included fast zeroing and fast settling features that are new and make it really, again, quick and easy to use this, trying to make it as convenient as possible for your busy work lives. We've also implemented a data matrix reader so that you can automatically read in the calibration data info for your chambers, so that it'll autofill the calibration details, so that you are less likely to have to deal with manual data entry errors. You can actually have confidence in the values that are entered into the data library. I did forget to mention we do have a patent pending on this device. So there are 3 configurations of the MaxElite. There's a 1-channel, a 2-channel, and a 4-channel configuration. So the 1-channel version is the basic model with just the core features. So it has that touchscreen operation. It is just a manual chamber calibration entry. It doesn't have the camera. The maximum bias voltage for the 1-channel version is 450 volts, which matches our Max 4000 Plus electrometer. And then the data resolution is 1 femtoamp, which is also matching our older electrometers. The MaxElite 2 and the MaxElite 4, the 2 and 4 channel versions, are the advanced electrometers that have that next level of premier features. So those are the ones that you can operate remotely. They are also the ones that have the camera for the data matrix based chamber calibration entry. There's an option on these electrometers as well to show an additional digit of resolution, to show a 1/10 of a femtoamp in the high resolution data display, if that's something that you are interested in or want for your measurements. You don't have to if you don't like to see the extra digit cluttering up the screen. The 2-channel electrometer has independent bias and range settings for the 2 channels, just like with our SuperMax electrometer. And the maximum bias there is 1,000 volts. So if you're using one of the larger spherical chambers for environmental measurements or a different detector that needs that high voltage, this is the electrometer that will be capable of providing that. The 4-channel electrometer has all those premier features as well, and really is useful if you're trying to do more than 2 simultaneous measurements. So a couple examples of where this would happen this is our constancy check phantom. This is becoming more popular in places where having a physical radioactive check source is becoming extremely burdensome from a regulatory or safety standpoint. You can do the same sort of chamber stability check with a simultaneous measurement of 3 chambers in a standard radiation therapy beam, and comparing that with prior measurements to ensure that your chambers are behaving as expected and there hasn't been damage to one of them that might impact its measurements. In a scenario like this, when one chamber has or is displaying some issues, then you have two others that you're comparing with, so you can see which chamber is the outlier, which one might need more investigation. If you're only comparing two at a time and one of them has an issue, it's harder to tell which one's right and which one's wrong. So that's the reason for the 3-chamber comparison as that replacement for physical check sources. And the other place that it's very frequently used, people use more than 2 channels at a time, would be the tomotherapy cheese phantom, or a similar phantom where you might have chambers in multiple locations within a larger QA phantom, and you want to irradiate them all with a single irradiation. The MaxElite is not available yet for purchase internationally in some areas. We have regulatory clearance within the United States, Canada, the EU. We're in process of getting clearance within Australia, Japan, and Brazil. And I think I left China off there as well. I think we're able to sell within China. We're not yet cleared in other markets, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to be. So we will be assessing those on a case-by-case basis. So if you're listening internationally, you're interested in the MaxElite, but you're not one of those countries I have listed here, please reach out, ask your sales representative or your distributor if it's possible to get the MaxElite cleared for sale in your country. So with that, I'd like to step over to a demonstration of the device itself. So I have a unit here on the desk beside me, but I'm connected to it remotely through my computer. So this is a mirror of the screen that's on the device itself, so that if you're used to operating it on the device, it looks the same when you're operating it remotely. So the basic interface here has 3 tabs. We have a setup tab, we have a measure tab, and then of course the data tab where you would have the history of your measurements available. The measure tab is where you spend most of your time, I'm sure. I have a 2-channel electrometer hooked up right now, so there's a display here of 2 channels. The ratios between those measurements, if that's of interest to you, is shown by default, but can be hidden if you don't want to see it. If I'm only using 1 channel, I can switch to just a single channel mode and have a cleaner interface that way as well. If I'd like to, when I apply bias here, I can choose the voltage and turn it on. It'll show you the actual voltage on that channel up here, as well as an indicator at the top of the screen that you have bias turned on. This is one of the little features that I really like about the electrometer, is that this bias indicator is visible from any of the pages of the electrometer. So if I happen to be checking my data or doing something else and then realize that I need to go get out of the way because there's a patient coming in or somebody else needs the machine, or I just need to move on to something else, I can turn off bias from wherever I am on the device. I also have that indicator that bias is on so that I don't try and disconnect a chamber or connect a new chamber if I've got the bias turned on. You can select ranges, as I mentioned, independently for channels 1 and 2. Let me show you what that looks like here. If I have 2 channels, I have independent bias settings for those, so I could turn on bias on 1 channel and not the other if I'm using a diode or something like that. Choose my ranges appropriately for those 2 as well. And then I can apply system factors for chambers. I'm going to go back to 1 channel just to make this a little cleaner. I can apply system factors if I have a calibrated chamber and or a well chamber, and I want to see my output in terms of dose or dose rate, whatever matches the entry on my calibration certificate. I can certainly apply those as well. So for instance, if I'm using a well chamber like our HDR 1000 plus, then my output is in dose rate. And I can apply a temperature pressure correction to account for the fact that this chamber is vented. We autofill the pressure value using a sensor that's built into the device. So you don't have to do that if you don't, or you don't have to enter that value if you don't want to. You can override it. If you have a calibrated barometer that you prefer to use for your measurements, you can certainly override the auto-populated value. And then I can fill in the temperature. Once I apply a temperature and pressure correction factor, I get this little thermometer icon to let me know that that's been applied as I'm making my measurements. I have a desktop current source. I'm going to turn bias off here, but because this one doesn't require it. But if I hook up a current source just to show you what things look like here when it's actually running, turn on some current. Now you can see that I've got that pseudo measurements going here. If I start a measurement, it'll integrate those. I think actually, stop this. I have it set up currently to do timed collections. With this dose conversion factor, looks like it doesn't fit on the screen. I should go to the low range. I'll pick a different dose conversion factor just for fun. Now, if I start measuring again, hang on. Let me switch this. Sorry, I should have practiced on which current actually made sense for the measurements that I was doing. But we'll try this again. I also failed to zero. Bad physics practice. You don't want to zero with the current. Apologies there. I'll teach you all kinds of bad habits today. All right. We will zero for real. All right, unplugged it and my zero makes it way off because I was trying to zero with a pretty high current going in. So when the rate is changing fairly rapidly, like I just unplugged the current source, it does take a longer time to zero. If it has been stable for a while, then the system will recognize that, and the zeroing process will be much more rapid. So now if I turn on my current source fully, and I can start my measurements. Still not sure why my dose is not showing up, but the charge and the rate values are recorded here. They're also recorded in the data table. I'm measuring no dose. Oh, it's because my units are strange. So we'll take that away for now, just to make it a little simpler. And now I'm off my planned track. That's okay. So if I were to want to capture just the rate value rather than doing an integrated measurement, I can use the capture rate button. That will catch it here. The other thing for measurements that I'd like to point out is that if you wanted to use a triggered collection or a manually started and stopped measurements, those settings are very easy to change as well. The data page has all my measurements, as you've seen, as I've stepped over to it for both of the channels. And then the setup page is where I have my network info. So I've got it connected to my network here. That's what allows me to show it to you on screen. I have some settings for the electrometer itself. So preferences for how you want to enter pressure or to see pressure. and then which value your ADCL or your national standards lab is using as the reference value for the temperature and pressure correction. You can set a preference for your default charge collection type. And then this is where I could change the precision of what's displayed on screen. If I want to see that fourth digit, or if I really don't care about that level of precision for the measurements I'm making, 3 digits is just fine past the decimal point. I can select that. This is where you would have your detector library. So for instance, with the A26 or the A30 that I have entered here, I have some calibration data. I can see here on the A26, my calibration is past due. So it does indicate that to you here on screen. This option will not show up on the measure page as a selectable option because the calibration is past due, but you can certainly keep it here in the library for historical purposes if you want to be able to track that within the device itself. We have a check source calibration or a check source library here as well, I should say. This will allow you to calculate decay of your physical check source so that you don't have to do that manually when you're getting ready for measurements. And then in your preferences, just some display preferences for date and time and screensaver for when the screen goes dark. If I were on the device itself, there would be a camera icon right here. If I press that camera icon, that will open up the camera interface so that I can scan a data matrix code, which will then auto-populate my chamber library with that chamber's information. So switching back over to my slideshow again. If you want to see the Max Elite in person, your next best opportunity is coming up here in a week and a half at 8 p.m. So we will be there. We will have all three configurations, the 1, 2, and the 4-channel configurations of the Max Elite there at the booth. You can come see them, poke around on the screen, just see how easy it really is to use, and check it out for yourself. If you are not going to AAPM, but you're interested in the Max Elite, you can reach out to us either through the website, through your sales representative, or if you have questions, you could certainly reach out to me as well. So that's what I had for today. If you have any questions that haven't been entered yet, I guess I haven't been monitoring those, sorry. Feel free to enter them in the Q&A dialog box right now. And I will go check those, or Ashley, if you're taking a look at those, do we have any questions?
Yeah, let me pull them up right now here. Looks like we have a few that have come through. One was just if you could just kind of highlight a couple differences between Supermax versus Max Elite.
Absolutely. So the general workflow is very similar between the Supermax and the Max Elite. The main difference is the much larger touchscreen, which is a capacitive touchscreen, so you don't need the stylus for it. It's also another advantage over the Supermax is that ability to operate it remotely. So those would be the key differences that I would cite.
Thank you so much. Another is, can you share more details on how the new camera system works?
Yes, so within the US at least, the AAPM laboratory accreditation committee, I think it's a committee, has defined a data matrix code layout that would be used by the secondary standards labs, like the University of Wisconsin ADCL that we normally use, so that if you request the lab to provide as part of your chamber calibration to provide a data matrix code, you would then have that on your calibration certificate. And our Max Elite 2-channel or 4-channel Max Elite has a built-in camera with a data matrix reader. So just like scanning a QR code with your phone, you turn the camera on, it will capture that data matrix code, and then it'll automatically pop up a dialog that has the calibration information filled in for that chamber, and you can confirm it. If it's one that's been entered already, it recognizes it's a duplicate. It'll inform you of that. And you can then track your calibrations under that same serial number chamber within the electrometer itself, and have those available for if you want to do the dose conversion.
Perfect, thank you. Another that came through, do we know if the touch screen works with nitro gloves?
It does, actually. Yep, just like your phone. I did actually test that for a customer the other day, but yes, it does.
Perfect, thank you. Would you recommend a clinic investing in the 4-channel option?
That's a good question. I think it really depends on what you're using this for. If you are looking at replacing a check source with a phantom like our constancy check phantom, or if you want the ability to measure more than 2 detectors at a time within one of your QA phantoms, then yes, I would recommend considering the 4-channel. Otherwise, if that's not something that is necessary at your clinic, if that's not something that you see yourself needing, then I would strongly recommend the 2-channel instead of the 4-channel. I think 4 might be overkill for a lot of centers, but it is necessary for some.
Awesome, thank you, Shannon. That's all I'm seeing right now, but like Shannon said, if you have any questions, just submit them in the Q&A tab, or you can throw them right in the chat and we can address them.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today. I do really appreciate taking time out of your busy schedules to tune in and hear what we have to say about some of our new products. I really look forward to seeing some of you at AEPM as well. So thank you.